everyone. I am in Hermanus. It's about 2 hours, not even that, outside from Cape Town. It is a beautiful place, but as you can see, it is very windy today, and I do apologize if the sound quality is not. Abagold, and it is an inland farm. As you can see, it's not being farmed in the sea because abalone, as you will know, it lives in the sea. But here, this is a hatchery, and this is where the babies are actually born, or what they call the larvae. It's all very technical. I think who knows all about this, and it is Enver Manchester. It's not Manchester, but it's
Manchester.
And Enver is the CEO here at Abagold, and CFO. The CFO, which is just as important as the CEO, as we know, because you crunch the numbers. So Enver, tell us a little bit about Abagold and what is it exactly? And why is it so important that this place in Hermanus is centered here, but produces what it produces?
Yeah, so Abagold's got it's really a story of innovation and conservation. In the 1980s, the late Dr. Pierre Hugo, he experimented with reproducing abalone. And that was really in response to dwindling abalone numbers in the wild. So if you had a look at the Bay Area, this is where abalone is found naturally. And it's really because of the awesome sea temperatures between 16 and 18 degrees, which is ideal for abalone. And also the rich kelp beds that we have here, which abalone feeds on naturally. And it supports their life cycle as well. So it's really a perfect ideal environment for abalone reproduction and for abalone stocks.
And it is indeed one of the perfect locations, and we'll take you to have a look. So today is extremely windy, as you can tell. My hair is all over the place. But as Enver was telling us, this is a place that not only started in 1980s. Actually, the founder was starting this process with abalone in his tub, in his bathtub. Is that correct, Enver?
That is correct. So Dr. Pierre Hugo got his family to help him in the journey, and got his sons to carry buckets of water. I'm told the story, and used his wife's utensils in the kitchen, to essentially find out how to successfully cultivate abalone. In the 90s, he was able to take that small-scale operation and actually commercialize it. So at the end of 1990, in sort of 1999, the first exports of abalone occurred into Asia. So from there on, the business has just gone from strength to strength. So the first part was really about innovation and conservation, and the next sort of decade was really about the growth of Abagold, and not only Abagold, but the abalone industry as well. And that was so much tied to the growth of China as well, because of China's prosperity and being a powerhouse, economic powerhouse, that has enabled the abalone industry to also grow in a similar fashion.
And that's very important, and especially now that we are going to be having the CIIE in Shanghai in the next few days, it's important that we talk about abalone, because South Africa exports, I believe in this area, half of what it produces, it exports it to China. Is that correct? And talk to us about tons.
Yeah, that's correct. So the bulk of our abalone that we produce, which is about 500 tons in terms of growth that we're able to harvest, that gets exported into China, including Hong Kong. And if you look at the SA market itself, that represents between 25% and 30% of the SA abalone that gets exported. So the species we export is Haliotis midi, which is unique to the South African coastline. So we're talking about 1,500 kilometers of coastline. And it's endemic to South Africa, so not found anywhere else in the world. Haliotis midai is uniquely South African.
So let's go and look at it and let's see what it looks like. So if you want to come with us, Enver will show us exactly where it is.
Absolutely. I'm gonna be introducing you to the hatchery manager, and he will show us exactly where the brood stock is located. These are the parent abalone. Abalone is essentially a broadcast spawner, and you can identify the male and the female, and they essentially release their reproductive cells into the water, and fertilization happens in the water itself, but Dirk will talk us to that.
Thank you so much, Enver. Dirk, thank you so much for joining us. We want to know exactly what's happening in these tanks, so will you walk us through us?
Can I show you the broodstock first?
Please.
Yeah, so this is where everything starts off with. This is our broodstock animals that we're using. So these are about 15 to 20 years old animals. You can see there's a tag that we tag the animals, so we can see who are they, and to see who's the offspring of these abalone.
Wow, that's incredible. And these, you said they are about 20 to 30 years old.
Yes.
Sure. So this will reach maybe 2 kilos?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And the ones that Abagold, can you say harvest?
Yes.
Harvests here, they grow up to what size?
From harvesting, it's anything from 40 grams and up, and it can go up to a kilogram size for harvesting.
So from here, where do we go?
So from here, we go to the nursery. This is where all the small babies is, and they stay in this process for about 4 months. The full hatchery cycle is 9 months long, and so yeah, this is the little babies. Let me show you.
Let's show the babies.
What is very interesting is, the green color and the blue color is really, really beautiful. The ulva that they're eating is creating that green.
Is this kelp?
It's ulva. Yes, we do grow it on our premises.
Look how cute. Am I allowed to touch them?
Yes, you're allowed to touch them. You can see the small little lines is what they basically eat while they're here. The purple blue color is the formulated feed from our feed factory, and the green color is of course the ulva that we grow.
It's beautiful. And yes. So you were saying, remind me, this is how old?
These are about 6 months old.
6 months old.
Yeah. So it does take quite a while to grow.
Wow, these are incredible. So where do I put the little baby back?
I'll just put it inside there again.
Okay, so Dirk, from here, this little baby, 6 months old, what comes next for the lifespan of this Haliotis midai?
Yes, that's it. So here they'll stay for another 2 months, and then we'll size sort them again into the same tanks again until they're a little bit bigger, and then we transfer them to our farm into the baskets.
How important is it to keep temperature stability for these little babies? I mean, I would imagine that this is very important in order for them to grow strong and healthy.
So temperature is very important. So at certain temperatures they stop eating, and we want them to eat as much as they can, so that they can grow nice and fast. So temperature is very important to be stable, and then also constant feeding and also cleaning, husbandry practices.
So what happens from here? Where do we go now?
From here we can move to the bigger animals. I can show you just right at the back.
Let's go, Dirk. Let's have a look at where they are. I'll follow you. So these ones here have been promoted, if you can say that.
Yes. So these ones are slightly bigger, or quite bigger than the other ones, and older, and they are ready to go to the farm, into the baskets, as mentioned earlier.
And here I can see that they are less turquoise, less blue. They kind of lose a little bit of their colors.
They start to lose the color, yes. Yeah.
And that is just the cycle.
That is the cycle. As soon as they go to the farm, they get the more cream color, as you've seen earlier. So in the hatchery, they have this nice, vibrant colors. But as soon as they go out here, they start to lose that.
So what I've read up is that the Heliotis midday is very revered. People love it, especially China loves this particular species. Why is that?
I think we have a good species. Heliotis midday is a very good species, and it grows up to a good size as well.
And the taste, what is it like?
Taste is quite unique. Yeah, so it's completely different than the normal ocean food that we can get around here. Yeah.
Dirk and Enver, do you have anything else to let us know about this? Because even though you are the CFO, I see that you know a lot about this business.
Yeah, so I think unique to Heliotis midday is just the appearance, the taste profile, the texture, and the consistency with which Abagold can actually provide a product to our customers in China. That all adds to a product that's well received in the marketplace. And I think important to note, we were talking about the feeding. We, from a sustainability point of view, we actually have our own feed mill as well. So we produce our own formulated feed. The issue with abalone feeds on kelp in the wild, but the issue with kelp is it's not always available. So you need a right permission or to actually harvest kelp from the ocean, and that kelp is not always available. So we've actually set up a factory to manufacture formulated feed. So that, first of all, enables us to have a sustainable feed source. And secondly, it allows us to develop feed so that we meet the requirements, environmental requirements on the farm itself. So, for example, we do find that there's sometimes warm water that comes into the bay, and we're talking about 20 degrees, 22 degrees. And during those times, we actually change the formulated feed that we feed to our animals on the farm. So it's important to respond to the environmental conditions.
So that is a very important factor to bear in mind. And this here, I see that you were talking about the feed, you were talking about, Dirk didn't tell me the name of this, but I can't remember.
This is ulva.
Ulva.
So this is fed to the juvenile abalone. In the wild, they would be eating essentially ulva in the wild, and we grow ulva on the farm. It's fairly easy to grow, for a certain period of their lifespan, we then feed them ulva. As they grow older, we start feeding them formulated feed.
So it's like essentially it's like a seaweed.
It's a seaweed,
yes,
yeah.
but not as rich as the kelp, as you were mentioning.
Kelp is a lot thicker, a lot tougher, whereas ulva is a lot thinner. So the baby abalone, obviously smaller and not as and easier to digest for the baby abalone. So it has obviously an impact on the color that you see, with the juvenile abalone as well. So that color is mainly from the fact that they're eating ulva.
So what happens after this process? Are we close by to something else to see?
What happens after this is we've got what's called a flow-through system. So essentially each tank gets water pumped into it together with air, and that water then goes directly back to the ocean. It doesn't go from tank to tank. So it is the most expensive way of farming, but it's also probably the most efficient way to control the animals with regards to the lifespan. So part of what we do is we sort through animals or through baskets. So the animals are found in individual baskets, and we sort through those baskets every 4 months, and that allows us to then essentially ensure that we have the right quality of animals on the farm over its lifespan. So we've got about 40,000 baskets on the farm itself, and that equates to about 640 tons of abalone.
That's remarkable, and I think, as you were mentioning, the fact that this is the water that is pumped from the ocean, and I would imagine with all the kelp, with all the ulva, and all those properties and love and care, is what makes this quality of this abalone so delicious. I mean, you have many people that buy it. It's a delicacy in China. It's eaten for special occasions. It's not so much something that would be eaten in South Africa. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in South Africa, I think the South Africans have a rich history of consuming abalone, but unfortunately don't necessarily want to pay for abalone. So the fact that the Chinese economy has grown as it has grown, there is a customer base that is willing to pay for abalone. Our cost of production is quite high, so we're talking about a cost of production of easily close to $18 a kilogram, $20 a kilogram, just the cost of production. That's besides the cost to export and the other cost in the value chain. So it is a quite an expensive species to grow. But we've found that for us, in terms of meeting the requirements of the marketplace, that we try and grow larger abalone. So the largest producer of abalone in the world is actually China. Of the 180,000 tons that's produced in the world, China produces the majority of that. So South Africa's 3,000 tons that South Africa produces in a year is a small component of the total production. But what we do offer is a unique species, and as I mentioned, what Abagold offers is also a larger size profile. So we target typically a size profile of about 300 grams, but we're able to supply smaller abalone as well as larger abalone. So one of the projects that we are part of it's a ranching project up on the west coast, and in terms of that, we've supplied the SPACT, the baby abalone, to that project, and 7 years later there is harvesting taking place, and typically what we get from that harvest is around 500 grams, 600 grams, 700 grams animals, so a lot larger than what we have on the farm itself, and with similar qualities, So
I think for our viewers, what we would like to see is a little bit more, because we've understood that this is a premium quality type of food that is used for special occasions. It is hugely exported to China, and I think our viewers want to see a little bit more, and I do know that it's very, very windy here, and they're going to have a lot to listen when it comes to the wind. But the other thing I wanted to mention is, how big is Abagold? How many people does it employ? And why is it important in a country like South Africa, where unemployment unfortunately is rife? Why is it important that Abagold gives back to the community?
Yeah, so Abagold employs in total about 450 people, and that, bear in mind that unemployment in South Africa is above 35%, so a high degree of unemployment. So being able to, it's a privilege for us to be the largest private employer in the Hermanus area, in the Overstrand area. And that puts us in a unique position. So for us, development, skills development, community development is extremely important. This year we're spending close to R1 million, or that's close to about $70,000 in terms of community support, and that's in the form of bursaries, It's in the form of financial support to childcare centres, and that for us is an important part of what we do. You know, it's part of how we give back to the community.
But it's also and from what I see, what keeps your employers, employees, employees. It's what keeps them happy, and I feel that very much there's a stability here, that people are happy with what they do, because this is very intensive labor, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the amount of handling we do with regards to the abalone is quite significant. So some farms would farm abalone and essentially not handle it as much as we do. We found that it's quite important to have workforce available so that we actually can ensure that we handle the abalone in such a way that we sort the different sizes, and that we actually provide the right size for our customers, and that's quite important for us. So with regards to employment, yes, our staff do have a responsibility to dependents, and we find that in our setup there are 10 dependents that will rely on one paycheck, so to speak, and that is kind of unique to the South African scenario.
Exactly. And what I find super interesting is that there have been people that have worked here for 24 years. I spoke to a lovely lady called Beauty, and she started in another area, and she now is a farm manager. And I think to be able to grow in a business like this is very important. And what about the transfer of skills, of making sure people grow and are better at what they do?
Yeah, that's critically important. We've got so many excellent stories of people that were here at the beginning in terms of employees, and 25 years later they're still here, you know, and they're very proud of what they do. You know, and that's really, you know, part of the legacy, you know. So I mentioned earlier that the late Dr. Hugo, you know, he was key to all. He started this whole journey, and some of these individuals were employed by him, and they still here 25 years later. So we appreciate staff, you know, like that, that actually values what Abagold does, you know, for them, and that gives back to Abagold as well. So it's a beautiful story. Yeah.
It's a beautiful story, but it also means that it's a story of success. It means that this company, as you told me, was able to grow more because as China grew and as demand grew, they started wanting more abalone. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the success of China is very much linked to the success of Abagold and the abalone industry in South Africa. You know, so we've seen phenomenal growth from China, who's a powerhouse, and that growth has benefited the abalone industry. You know, so the reason why we're expanding as Abagold, capacity, you know, and that's going to take a significant amount of capital, and the reason why we're doing that is because China China and Chinese people, wherever they are consuming abalone. So I would like to encourage them to continue doing that.
I'm sure they will continue to. Actually, now that they've seen this, they've understood where it's coming from. It's coming from literally the source. The ocean is just a few feet away. It is a choppy sea today, but I am sure that this makes anyone who is far away, when they buy a product like abalone coming from Abagold, they understand that the quality will be inside that product, because from the start until the end to the end product, it has been done with such care and with such detail to sustainability, to social development, and I think that is the secret of what needs to be a business today.
Absolutely. Julie, just to mention, we've also been the recipient of the Global Friends of the Sea Award for 2022, and that's it's an honor for us. What that means, and that's in the aquaculture space, so that means we farm sustainably, and we are aware of our responsibility to It's a critical part. The cost of production and the barriers to entry for abalone farming is significant. You know, to set up an abalone farm takes a lot of money. Abalone takes long to grow, so it takes 5-6 years before we can actually provide a product to the market. And the cost of production, as I said, is quite high. So all of that means that the barriers to entry are high. There's about 18 farms in South Africa, and the reality is the investment into the industry is, as I said earlier, is very much dependent on China, you know, continuing sourcing abalone from South Africa and Haliotis Midday specifically.
Because of this demand, and also now with the that door for that partnership between South Africa and China. Obviously, South Africa being China's biggest trading partner. Do you feel that an
I would love to believe that, and I think the rich tradition with China consuming abalone, that's not going to end soon, you know. So it's of what we call load shedding, which is power interruption. So what we do during that time, because we pump water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's close to 13 million liters of water per hour at a huge cost, you know. So for us, the sustainability of the industry in terms of economic sustainability is at risk, you know, when load shedding does happen. So for us, the next phase is renewable energy, together with a reliable battery storage facility. That's sort of where we need to go next as a supplier. Has its challenge and its challenges, and it's going to be like that for the next couple of years. So as an abalone, solar is part of that.
So not where we are now, because this all happens at the back. If you want to follow us, it's a little bit until we get there. Around the area of, it wasn't the hatchery, it was where the Haliotis Midday is now about 2 years old. I saw that all those tanks were covered with photovoltaic panels, and therefore trying to make sure that that renewable energy that you mentioned, and very much going solar, in order to try to mitigate what is happening with Eskom and the continuous load shedding. Was that a huge investment to do, and is it actually paying back? because
Yeah.
it really does go forever.
Yeah. So part of how we did that investment was we actually got partners to invest and put up the solar, put down the capital requirements for the solar panels and the infrastructure. What we're doing, and it's under a power purchase agreement, we buy the electricity that's being produced from that solar. So our energy requirements is it's 2 megawatts per hour, as I said, 24/7, and the solar provides us energy for about 18% of that total requirement. So there's still 82% that we need to source from other sources. You know, so as I mentioned, battery is a big component. We would like to put down more solar, but the battery component is what you then need to be able to store the energy and use it, you know, overnight or when solar is not available. Yeah.
And that is what I think is the future. But I am going to take our viewers, and I hope they don't mind, from here until we get to the tasting room. It's a little bit further, but I'm sure you will bear with us once you see what is on that dish, because I saw it being prepared. It looked absolutely amazing. So we're going to walk down here, and excuse the wind. We're going to wash our feet. As you can tell, we have very lovely boots.
So just to tell you about our biosecurity. Biosecurity is very critical. We've had incidents in the...
Woo, you're even losing your hat.
Where challenges with sabellid worms, and this is back to the 1980s, and all of those issues have obviously been dealt with. And then fungus growth, ATM, is also another risk factor. So biosecurity is very, very important for us, and we take it seriously. And that's part of why we were also the recipients of the Friends of the Sea Award, because biosecurity is part of our culture, and that's why you're wearing boots today.
And that's why I'm wearing these very stylish boots. As you can tell, they are very lovely, but it's all safety first. That's the most important thing, correct?
Absolutely. Health and safety, a bigger topic, but very important to us. We, you know, our motto really is, you know, if you're coming to work, you've got a family that you want to go
Enver, so this is the final product, and I can see that there are different ways of serving it.
Yeah, so essentially this is from our tin product, and what we have here is essentially baby abalone that's in a sauce, and what in the middle here what we have is carpaccio and ceviche on this side. So really delicious. If you want to try,
they look delicious, and I know this is not fair because nobody in China at the moment has this delicious dish in front of them prepared. I am actually going to try one. Let me try I think the easiest might be the carpaccio. I have to confess, I have never tried abalone.
There you go.
So, let me see. Woo, this
Bon
wind.
appetit.
Oh, it's delicious. This is delicious. I highly recommend this. I'm not sure that this is the type of recipe served in other places, but this is how it was presented here in South Africa. They made it into a little carpaccio, and it has this bit of, it's not, is it caviar?
No, it's caveat. So it's actually kelp eggs. That's unfortunately not caviar.
Not caviar, because caviar we know is very expensive. But it's so beautifully done. It's placed here on an abalone shell, and really the attention to detail is incredible. I am going to try one more. And I am so sorry that you have to hold this, but
no, I've had many of these.
We are in a little bit of a tunnel wind here, and hopefully this will go well and not escape somewhere.
There you go. Takes a while to chew, and yeah, it as I said, it does take a while to chew.
It is a little bit more chewy, and the texture. It's a little bit harder, but tell me, would this have been the same as that, but just sliced?
Correct, yeah. So abalone is quite high in collagen, but the carpaccio with the sliced abalone, does make it, obviously the texture is very different. We believe that the Chinese market enjoys the whole abalone. And yeah, that's not. You got to find the right abalone for your taste profile. That's really it.
I think all of them must be delicious. I am going to leave it here because I believe that we know everything we need to know now about abalone, about Abagold. I really think that this type of industry and the way Abagold has turned it into a very successful story is very important, and I hope you viewers have enjoyed it. And thank you for joining us here in Hermanus in the Western Cape on a very windy day. Thank you so much, and thank you, Enver.
Thank you.